Hi folks, I'm Spencer, and on today's episode of Cult Mania we are talking about 5 different films that have really freaked me out. Because that's fun. Now, I like to think of myself as someone who doesn't particularly scare easily. That's not always been the case. When I was a kid, I was pretty much terrified of everything. You know, I loved Thunderbirds, but whenever the Hood's eyes did that lighty-uppy thing, I had to go and hide behind the sofa. Doctor Who freaked me out. Anything that had a jump scare in it drove me up the wall. I had to leave Monsters Inc. when I was a kid because that scared me. So I grew up terrified of everything, and then weirdly I think the more I got into horror, the less anything scared me. This is the thing, a lot of stuff that scared me back in the day wasn't supposed to be particularly scary, and then a lot of stuff that is supposed to be scary has little to no effect on me. But actually most of the things, well, everything on this list is scary stuff. But no, it takes quite a bit to scare me, so let's get into this. Like I said, there's 5 films. I will segment this episode because there is no way of discussing this sort of thing without spoilers. So, yeah, spoiler warning. So, for the first film on this list, I am going with the film that freaked me out the most recently, which was Lake Mungo, which, for people who've not seen it, is a found footage horror film that centres around a family where their daughter they've been out swimming and she disappears, and they eventually go searching in the lake. They find her body, and then they start to see ghosts around. Also, they think. Now, I think one of the great things, there are multiple reasons. I mean, it's a great film. Lake Mungo's a fantastic film, and I was sort of annoyed with myself that I dismissed it because the name is awful, because it doesn't sound scary. So Mungo does not instill terror in anyone. One of the key things that I think it does really well is it does a lot of playing around with the idea of, is this real? Now, obviously, it's a found footage film. We all know a lot of the tropes of, it's you are attempting to recreate something that should be believable as actual reality. Lake Mungo does this better than pretty much any other that I can think of. It's actually a documentary. It's structured like a documentary rather than just that continuous stream of footage that something like Blair Witch is. That where you constantly question who's edited this. So it is this edited together documentary, and there are a bunch of points at which scary things have happened and then they're completely debunked. People go, oh well, that was just someone faked that, or that's actually this person that just happens to look like the person who you think the ghost is. And I think it's constantly doing that and wrong-footing you that then means that when you start to get towards the point where you go, actually, no, there is something really, really freaking supernatural going on, you believe it 100%. You are so invested in the drama and it feels real that those more supernatural don't feel weird or out of place. They just feel scary. And a huge part of it as well is connected to that realism aspect. All the characters are really believable, and it's a really quite emotional, it's a really sad film as well as being scary. And I think, again, because, it's about a family that have lost their daughter, and I think it does such a good job of making that feel real. Yeah, you're just so invested, you just go with it. And I think because perhaps it lowers, almost I think because it's sad, it lowers your guard to the more scary stuff. And I mean, I'm sure many people know there's a shot towards the end of this that is genuinely terrifying. And I think it's one of those things that you stare at and you know it's terrifying and you just stare at it going, I can't look away, this is horrific. It also peppers little hidden spooky bits throughout, and then through the credits shows you them, these things, and some of them I spotted, and there was one that was so obvious, this like ghost in a shot that they show you over and over and over again, and I didn't see it, and it freaked me out that it had been on screen and I'd not seen it. I felt so stupid, and it genuinely sent like a whoa feeling through me. So yeah, Lake Mungo's pretty scary. Okay, this next one is probably the most obvious film on this list. This is probably the one that would pop up on a lot of people's most scary films ever, freaked out films ever. Ju-on, The Grudge, the original Japanese one that I think actually is like the third one in the chronology. You know the one I mean. For anyone that hasn't seen it, it's a Japanese ghost story where basically you are just introduced to a bunch of different characters that turn up at this house that is cursed, and once you step inside the house, that's it, you're dead. The ghosts are gonna come and get you. And it's just, I think actually the fact that it's these just segments built around usually one big scary set piece that just make it terrifying. And I mean, we've all seen the Japanese style of ghost. In this one, it's Kayako, the white gown, the long hair, and you've got Toshiro, the little cat boy kid thing. I mean, they are genuinely creepy. It's a really just perfectly designed set of ghosts. You know, the crawling down the stairs. And I think, like I said, it's this structure of you get confronted by the ghost, you die. And I think that just allows it to just move along, scare the crap out of you, and then you don't really get much respite, and you don't get a huge amount of, oh, this is what we need to do to solve the case. It just dispenses with that completely and just gets to scare you. This proper kept me up the night that I saw it. I think it's the shot where there's the character in bed and Kayako's like coming out of the wall above them. That freaked me out. And it's one of those things that I think it's because you're in bed and then you lie in bed in the dark and look up and you think, oh my god, there's going to be something above me. I mean, I've seen a lot of similar films. Ring has some great atmosphere, goes too kooky. Dark Water is too emotional. It's too much of a good story to, I think, fully be scary. Pulse got quite close to being as scary as this, but it just goes into such a extreme territory towards the end that I think that almost stopped it being quite so... The Grudge just is wholly designed to be terrifying. It has almost nothing else in it, just scariness. Okay, if there's one that I feel like I'll get flack for on this list, it's The Strangers, which I have to make a caveat on this one, and I think this is a huge part of why anyone finds any film scary. It's when you see it. The Strangers is a home invasion film that was sold as being based on true events. It isn't. It's a remake of I think it's an Eastern European film called Them. It's basically the same film, in which, like I said, it's a home invasion film. A couple are attacked by 3 masked assailants, and in that way, it's very stripped back. That's what it is. That's the story of the film. And I mean, it's a really effective. It's a very downbeat film, and I think that helps to make it unsettling. There's some, the violence in it's quite punchy. It builds very well. And I think everyone knows the sort of line of like, why it happens that the killers just say it's because you're home. That's terrible, because it's just horrible people doing horrible things. I think the reason this freaked me out the most, I first saw this at high school in media studies. It went down really well. People really liked the film. Freaked a lot of people out in class. There's the shot where Liv Tyler stood in the kitchen and you see like one of the masks sort of appear out of a back doorway. It was great watching the wave of people freak out around the room when they spotted it. But it coincided with me being of the age where I started being able to stay home on my own. So I think the idea that these people were just going to break into the house because they wanted to kill you rather than any other, you didn't upset anyone. They just knocked on the door, you were home, and they decided, we'll freak these people out and kill them. It just coincided really well. And I think that does happen. Whatever films freak you out more because of where you are in life. I wouldn't want to watch The Strangers if I just moved into my own house or anything like that, because it would be terrifying. So yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to diminish the power of the film at all. I'm not trying to knock it at all. I think if you put it next to the sequel that they did, which was much more just a slasher film and doesn't have the sort of darkness that I think, that sort of points out why The Strangers is really good and really effective. But I do think where you are in life really does play into why horror films work for you. Next on this list is Martyrs, but not for the reason that I think everyone will assume I've put it on the list. Martyrs is about a woman who seeks revenge on people who tortured her as a child, and then in trying to get this revenge, she pulls herself and her friend into a world of just torture and pain. It is an incredibly, incredibly difficult film to watch. There are some really, really good practical effects, but really quite ow. It is a really distressing is a really good word for it. And it does pack in, compared with, it's not got the flash of something like Saw. It's not got the overly gross nature of something like Hostel or Frontiers. It just goes for it's painful. And I knew that going in. Everyone had told me it's a hard watch. I wasn't expecting to be genuinely scared by it though. And this comes from the main character has these visions of a woman who, when she escaped from her captors, that she feels she could have saved and didn't. And oh my god, the moments when those visions happen are genuinely some of the most terrifying sort of spectral moments in anything that I can remember. And I think in part it was going into the film having no idea that was in the film at all, so it completely caught me off guard and freaked me the shit out. I genuinely was like, oh my god. And I think that really unsettled me and probably made the rest of the film hit me that much harder. I think also the fact, and massive spoiler warning here, more so than anything else, the end of Martyrs is so distinctly strange in that this is such a bleak, depressing, and almost the end has this weirdly poetic, almost strangely comforting, positive moment towards the end that you feel weird about, and it has never left me, the end of Martyrs, because I think it's so interesting to end such a depressing, bleak film on this weird note, I think it just means that the film lingers with you because it's got that about it. It's not just a trudge. Well, it is a trudge, but it's a trudge to an end that actually is weird because you associate yourself with. It's almost the baddies were right, and it's just just what I keep going to watch Martyrs again, and I keep thinking, I don't know if I can put myself through it again, and I really, really want to. And I think actually the one thing that stops me is that scary lady at in the first sort of half of the film, because that really, really, really did bother me in a way that I didn't expect at all. I feel like I could almost deal with the torture sequences and all that. It's the scariness of it that I couldn't. But no, it's a far better film than I think its reputation gives it credit for. And also, it points out the major flaw in the remake, in which they save the day at the end, which is just weird because it defeats one of the greatest aspects of the original Martyrs. Continuing our bleak, this isn't really a fun scary list. This is a really depressing scary list generally. We arrive at a film that is probably a bit odd, because I don't even know if this counts fully as a horror film. Claire Denis' High Life, which I think is the newest film on this list. This is, in large part, a sci-fi film in which it was Claire Denis' first English language film. It stars Robert Pattinson, and it's about prisoners that have been sent into space. We follow a group who have been sent to study a black hole. Or have they? Have they just been jettisoned into space, really? It's told not in chronological order, so you just get these moments that perhaps sometimes feel like they're hallucinatory, or are they real? How did we get here? What's this? And it's an incredibly downbeat film, and just packs some of the strongest imagery that I can think of. This is weird. I don't really want to give too much away about High Life because I don't feel like it's perhaps been seen as much or given the chance. I think it's there are just freaky images that I think if you go into this expecting it to just be a sci-fi film, are really distressing. It's a film with horrible people that you sort of grow attached to a degree, in which you're constantly wavering on whether you trust people. There is a sequence involving this weird sort of pleasure box thing that is just so strange and full of unsettling imagery. There is a scene involving the black hole that scars me. It's a film that I really didn't expect to still be thinking about sort of 2 years later, it feels like. I don't know. This is the thing, I've lost track of actually when I saw her, because so much stuff in it has not left my brain. And I didn't expect it to have such an impact on me. Just, it is a wholly unsettling experience in ways that words can't do it justice. I know this is rambling now, but I'd like to see High Life get a bit more respect as just being. I guess it fits in with Martyrs in there is this sort of existential existence is pain sort of element to get all metal on you. But no, it also has those moments of sort of transcendent beauty that something like that, perhaps more so. And I think it's that juxtaposition of just the worst and this idea that there might be something good that can come out of it. I don't know, I'm waffling. Go watch High Life and be distressed and freaked out. It's not scary. You know, it's not full of boo haunted house moments, but it freaks me out. It's that thing of getting under your skin, which is more so. This is why I didn't call this 5 scariest films. It's why I called it 5 films that freaked me out, because it's not sheer terror all the time. So there we go. That's 5 films that freaked me out. I hope it has made you perhaps want to see some of these films. I know that I've made them sound depressing a lot of the time. And yeah, I'd love to know what films have freaked you out. It's always a really interesting one, because, like I said, where you are in life affects how films impact you. And I think it's just, you know, that I'm sure there are people that on here that could watch Ju-On, not find it scary, watch High Life and be bored and not in. So I want to know what you think of the films that I've discussed and what films have freaked you out. Please let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos, and I shall see you next time.